keep my feet above sinking sand. You've shown me the way, for you I'll stand. Oh.
This is Romans 11, 1 through 36. I say then, has God cast away his people? Certainly not. For I am also an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God has not cast away his people who he foreknew. Or do you not know what the scripture said of Eliyahu, how he pleads with God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed your prophets and torn down your altars, and I alone am left, and they seek my life. But what does the divine response say to him? I have reserved for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. Even so then, at this present time, there is a remnant according to the election of grace. And if by grace, then it is no longer of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. But if it is of works, it is no longer grace. Otherwise, work is no longer work. What then? Israel has not attained what it seeks, but the elect have obtained it. And the rest were blinded. Just as it was written, God has given them a spirit of stupor, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, to this very day. And David says, let their table become a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense to them. And let their eyes be darkened so that they do not see, and bow down their backs always. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Certainly not. But through their fall, to provoke them to jealousy, salvation has come to the dispersed ones. Who are the Gentiles he's talking about here? Are the dispersed ones. The ones whose forefathers were dispersed into the nations for disobedience to the word. Salvation has come to the dispersed ones. Now, if their fall is riches for the world, and their failure riches for the dispersed ones, how much more their fullness? For I speak to you dispersed ones, inasmuch as I am apostle to the dispersed ones. Remember, Yeshua says, I come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. For I speak as much as I am apostle to the dispersed ones. I magnify my ministry, if by any means I may provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh, the Yehudim, the Jewish people that he was from, and save some of them. For if their being cast away is a reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. The root is Yeshua. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and then became partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches, the natural ones. Ephraim, the northern kingdom, was always described as the wild olive. Now, you take a wild olive branch and you graft it into a natural olive tree. It takes 3.5 years for that branch to produce fruit, the time of Yeshua's ministry. So the natural branches are the Jewish, and the wild branches are the northern kingdom, the descendants, the wild branches. Ephraim is always going to be looked at as the wild cards. They're wild. He calls them a donkey. They're so full of themselves, they've got all these ideas. And if some of the branches were broken off, you being a wild olive tree were grafted in among them, and with them became partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. But if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. Yeshua. You will say then, branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well said, because of unbelief they were broken off. Do not boast against the branches. You might say that the branches were broken off and might be grafted in. Well said, because of unbelief or unfruitfulness. Both of those go together. They were broken off. You stand by fruitfulness, by faith. Do not be haughty, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he may not spare you either. Therefore, consider the goodness and the severity of God. On those who fell, severity. But toward you, goodness, if you continue in his goodness. There's a big fat if in there. If you continue in. Otherwise, you will also be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, will be grafted in. If they step out of that unbelief, that unfruitfulness, and get back into fruitfulness and believing, faith with action, they'll be grafted back in, for God is able to graft them in again. For if you are cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these who are natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? See, the reason he's calling the natural branches and cultivated is because they carry the Torah. The Jewish people have guarded the Torah for centuries. And Ephraim was dispersed into the nations for being wild. That's a wild olive tree. For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion. That blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. The fullness of the Gentiles is when all the nations come in to support the kingdom, not some man's ministry. We must start looking at the scriptures the way they were originally intended. Because if we don't, it says, do not steal. You're stealing from yourself. How many times I thought, have I stolen from myself because of my proud opinion? John 15, 1 through 11. Remember the branches.
I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is cast out as a branch, and is withered. And they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire, and it shall be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples. As the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love. You will keep my commandments. You will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full.
Always read Romans 11 with John 15. It explains the whole situation of unbelief and belief with the branches. We are the branches. We who are in Yeshua, living according to his teaching, the best of our ability, are to branch out. Ezekiel 36:8.
But you, O mountains of Israel, you shall shoot forth your branches and yield fruit to my people Israel, for they are about to come.
He's talking about both houses, Ezekiel 37, being one stick, producing fruit for those coming out wanting that fruit, seeing how to live according to the Torah. Sacrifices now for us is giving up that which is separating us from Elohim. And only we ourselves know what it is.
You keep my feet above sinking sand. You've shown me the way. For you I'll